At just 27 years old, he went from being one of the brightest stars in the NHL to a player no team really wanted around. Taylor Hall was supposed to be unstoppable, with blazing speed over 22 miles per hour and a shot that left goalies frozen.
Direct 3-on-2. Taylor Hall with Hall of the net drive. Hall scores!
But today, he's barely a shadow of that superstar. Injuries, trades, and pressure piled up fast. So what really happened? How did the guy expected to carry a franchise fall so far?
There was a lot of uncertainty whether I was going to go 1 or 2, but looking back, it was such an awesome time for me and my family and my friends.
From the Windsor Spitfires, Taylor Hall.
Stay tuned, because this is the unbelievable rise and fall of Taylor Hall. All right, let's rewind for a second. Before all the injuries and the trades, Taylor Hall was the guy. First overall pick in 2010, and honestly, there was no debate.
From the Windsor Spitfires, Taylor Hall.
He tore it up in junior hockey. We're talking back-to-back Memorial Cups, MVP performances, highlight reels every single night. Scouts were basically drooling over him. He was fast, powerful, and fearless. Picture this, a 6'1", 210-pound forward flying down the wing at over 22 miles an hour, defenders tripping over themselves trying to stop him. And his shot, a total missile. Hall could rip it over 95 miles an hour. You blink, you miss it, and the goalie's already fishing the puck out of the net. And here's something wild. Even though his teams often struggled, Hall was still a game changer. In fact, not many guys can say they won the league MVP without having a deep playoff run. Yeah, he actually pulled that off. Crazy, right? At this point in his career, it felt like the sky was the limit. People were already throwing his name next to Crosby, Kane, Ovechkin, like he was ready to take over the league. But then, things started to get complicated. Now, fast forward a bit, because this is where Taylor Hall really took off. After some rocky years in Edmonton, where honestly the poor guy just couldn't catch a break, he landed in New Jersey, and man did he light it up. 2017 to 2018 season, Hall went off. He wasn't just good, he was MVP level ridiculous. He dropped 93 points in 76 games, dragging the Devils, yeah, the same Devils who were a total mess at the time, straight into the playoffs. To give you some perspective, that's like carrying an NFL team to the playoffs when half the roster's on the injury list. He basically did it all himself. What's even crazier? At one point that season, Hall had a 26-game point streak. 26! That's the kind of run you see from legends. People were suddenly talking about him like he was the next great hope, finally delivering on all that potential. But even in this peak moment, you couldn't help but notice there were cracks, nagging injuries, moments where he just looked like he was pushing through pain, and you started wondering, could he really keep this up? Hold on to that thought, because this is where things start to get really interesting. Alright, so here's where it all starts to unravel. After that MVP season, it felt like Taylor Hall was finally on the path to superstardom. But then, bam! Injuries hit. And not just little bumps and bruises, we're talking serious stuff. Knee problems, lower body injuries that kept nagging him.
The surgery wasn't that crazy. Pretty much what he said. He thought I'd be skating by 10 to 14 days, and I was skating at a week. But
slowing down that insane speed that used to blow past defenders. And once that speed dipped, even just a little, defenders caught up. Suddenly, he wasn't that unstoppable force anymore. On top of that, the guy just couldn't stay in one place. It felt like every time you blinked, Hall was packing his bags again. New Jersey, then Arizona, then Buffalo, then Boston. 4 teams in 3 seasons. I mean, that's like an NFL quarterback changing teams every season for 3 years straight. Total chaos. And with every move, it got harder for him to build chemistry, to find his rhythm. Hall's a player who thrives off connection with his line mates, and bouncing around like that, it's brutal. You've got to wonder, was it just the injuries, or was there something deeper going on here? Confidence? Pressure? Maybe both? Hang tight, because the next part of this story pulls back the curtain even more. Okay, here's the thing. Just when it felt like Taylor Hall was sliding into the background, he gave us a spark. A little reminder of what made him special in the first place. When he landed in Boston, there was this wave of cautious optimism. People thought, alright, maybe Hall just needs the right environment. Some stability, a playoff-ready team, good line mates, maybe he can cook again. And for a moment, he actually did. Playing alongside guys like David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron, Hall started looking like his old self. The speed wasn't all the way back, but he was making plays, scoring big goals, and showing flashes of that MVP magic. Bruins fans were hyped, and honestly, it was fun to watch. But, and yeah, there's always a but in this story, it didn't last. More injuries crept in, and as Boston kept evolving, Hall started slipping down the lineup. He went from a top-line star to a secondary scorer, and you could feel it. That spark was fading again. The big question now, could Taylor Hall ever fully bounce back to the player we all thought he'd become? Or was this just a final glimpse before the curtain closed? Stick around, because we're about to answer that. So here we are, the tough part of the story. Taylor Hall, once the golden kid of the draft, now finds himself in the role no one saw coming, the journeyman. After Boston, he landed in Chicago. Now, Chicago's been rebuilding, so you'd think, okay, fresh start, less pressure, maybe he finds his groove again. But honestly, it's been rough. The injuries just kept piling up. Shoulder surgery, more time on the injured list, and for a player whose game depends so much on speed and explosiveness, that's like a running back losing a step in the NFL. It's brutal. What's wild is, Hall is only in his early 30s. He should still be in his prime. But the wear and tear of bouncing between teams, the non-stop injuries, the mental toll, it's all added up. He's gone from being the guy you build a franchise around to the veteran presence on a young rebuilding team. And let's be real, nobody expected this. Not for a first overall pick, not for an MVP. It's one of those what could have been careers that hockey fans will debate for years. Alright, let's take a step back here. We followed Taylor Hall's story from the dizzying heights of an MVP season to the tough reality of battling injuries and bouncing from team to team. But what really went wrong? It's easy to point fingers at the injuries, and yeah, they played a huge part. But it's more layered than that. Hall's game was built on speed, explosiveness, and confidence. When his body started breaking down, the confidence followed. You could see it. He'd get the puck in open ice, and instead of that killer instinct, there was hesitation. Split-second delays, second-guessing himself. In the NHL, that's all it takes to go from elite to average. And let's not forget, Hall's never been on a consistently great team during his prime. He wasn't drafted into a powerhouse like Crosby with the Penguins, or McDavid's situation now in Edmonton. He often found himself as the go-to guy on struggling teams, and that weight, man, it's heavy. It's one of those perfect storms. Injuries, unstable teams, pressure, and timing that turned a superstar trajectory into a career full of what-ifs. But even with all that, there's one thing that sticks. Hall never stopped battling, and that counts for something. So where does this all leave us? What's Taylor Hall's legacy in the NHL? Look, Hall might not go down as one of the all-time greats like Gretzky or Lemieux, but he will be remembered. First overall pick, MVP winner, that's etched in history. And honestly, his career's a reminder of how unpredictable pro sports can be. You can have all the talent in the world, but sometimes it comes down to staying healthy, being in the right place at the right time, and yeah, a little bit of luck. For young players watching, Hall's story is a wake-up call. It's not just about how high you go, it's about how long you can stay there. Consistency, resilience, and maybe a bit of good fortune are just as important as raw skill. And for fans, Taylor Hall's journey gave us excitement, frustration, and a whole lot of debate. Even if things didn't pan out the way we hoped, he gave us moments we won't forget. Alright, that's the story of Taylor Hall, the rise, the fall, and everything in between. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that button. It helps us bring you even more hockey stories.